Very happy good evening to one and all present in this virtual workshop on research data management. And today we are on, it is fifth day, and today once again we are meeting to discuss about the different aspects of research data management for higher educational institutes in India. And on this occasion, we have very distinguished speaker, Professor Dinesh Kumar Gupta. I express my sincere thanks to all the participants who have joined this session, and also I welcome all of you. I also welcome Professor Dinesh Kumar Gupta sir to this virtual session, and for accepting the invitation to be the part of this virtual workshop. Before we proceed for the session, I would like to give brief introduction about sir. Uh, Sir presently is working in the capacity of professor at Department of Library and Information Science, Kurukshetra University. His qualification includes PhD, Master of Library and Information Science, and Master of Arts in English. And he has a very rich experience of 29 years. And his research area includes ICT application in library and information centers, crowdsourcing, library classification, and he has awarded six PhD, submitted one, and at present supervising 5 PhD students and also 25 MPhil students. So far, he has completed his research evaluation more than 16, published more than 30 international and national journal and conference proceedings, book chapter, and we are very happy to know that sir is also editor, holding the position of editor in many international journals like Emerald Library Management, Library High Tech, Collection and Curation, and also he is a guest editor in Collection and Curation, special issue on Grey Literature. So, and apart from this, he is also working as a reviewer in different international journal of Emerald, like Library Management, Electronic Library, Collection and Curation, International Journal of Knowledge Content Development and Technology, Korea, and he is also associated with all the topmost international association and institutes. To his credit, there are many awards and achievements, and some of them I would like to list here. Literary Award 2020, Outstanding Reviewer for continued support of Collection and Curation, International Journal of Emerald. SRF LIS Professor Veena Saraf, Indian Literary Leader Award conferred by Satija Research Foundation of Library Information Science 2019. If I go on reading, I think I need a day to just give the detail about sir. Sir, it is really pleasure and honor to receive you today on this occasion in this virtual workshop. May I request all the participants and everyone who is watching this session to please join my hand to welcome sir to this virtual workshop.
Thank you, Tripathi.
Thank you, sir.
And good evening to all the participants.
Now may I request sir to please take over the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Tripathi. At the outset, I will thank to Dr. Tripathi for inviting me to share my views with the participants of this online workshop. We all know Tripathi is a very dynamic professional, contributing a lot to the profession voluntarily without any say getting back anything, expecting anything from us. And he has trained so many professionals throughout the country or throughout the world even. Participants are from different parts of the world. I thanks once again Tripathi for giving me opportunity to talk with you. Tripathi told me about the workshop on managing research data, metadata. So I thought to discuss with you one of the concerned topic. Let me share my screen. I hope now my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
Okay. So today I'll talk on importance of managing search metadata. All know about metadata. We have heard of metadata, but there are specific aspects that I'll be touching upon, which normally people don't talk about. It is normally referred to any data used to aid, assist in identification, description, and location of network electronic resources. Metadata is basically the detailed description, the items, the contents about the electronic resources that are available on net. It means different to different people. Different people consider metadata in a different perspective. Like libraries equate it with a complete bibliographical record. Most of us, I think, the participants are also librarians. So when we talk of metadata, we talk in terms of the documents or we talk in terms of users. So that way, we consider it as a bibliographic record like books, journals, theses, etc. So for different type of material, we need different metadata. But the basic thing is we consider bibliographic record as our metadata. And for information technologists, they equated data with the database schema or definitions of data elements. Like different, you see, nothing can be done on computer without a database. Today we see application of computer throughout the society, in shops, airport, railway station, post office, banks, everywhere. So everywhere metadata is important. Without metadata, we cannot do our works, complete our works. So for information technologists, the different elements of different entities are called metadata. And the archivists, though they are a little bit linked to libraries also, so they include in metadata content, context information, in which context information is treated, restrictions of information, because archivists are mainly concerned with the preservation of the documents. So what type of restrictions will be allowed, what type of permissions will be allowed to metadata. And then access terms, which terms and conditions will be applied to access the specific archival material, and index terms. Without indexing, no data can be accessed. So indexing terms and all these are concerned about the archivists. Now, most of us are very familiar with the term. Everybody says that metadata is data about data. But what is the importance of data, metadata? Why we should think of metadata? Why we should, what actually means data about data? Okay, think of a situation that we have undertook some research in present circumstances. We have analyzed, collected the data, we analyzed the data, and then we say reach to certain conclusions. Or we might have replicated our results, we have tested our results. But suppose we don't preserve that data, what will happen after 20 years if somebody wants to see, want to consult the same data? Then how that person, the researcher, will get that data 20 years earlier? So that is why we need to include your metadata. That is why metadata is important, so that in future, if somebody wants to analyze, compare the situation, that situation with a present situation, then that metadata can help a lot. So for that purpose, we need to preserve, we need to manage and maintain the metadata. Now, metadata is like reporting about who created the data, because in future somebody would like to know the authenticity of the data collector. So who created the metadata? What is the content of the metadata? Contents about the content. Then when were the data created? Time is very important. In future, somebody will want to, when somebody wants to compare, then he should know when that data was created. Where is it geographically? Because the data is important irrespective of the place. So the location is also important where the data was collected, because there may be similarities, geographical similarities, there can be some variations also. So somebody may want to compare the data, older data, with some new geographical location at different place. So the researcher may want to check similarity or dissimilarity with the different places and the older and new metadata. Then how was the data developed? What was the method developed for developing the metadata? And why were the metadata developed? What was the purpose of developing the data? Why the data was developed? Because the same from the same say respondents, we may collect different type of data. That the importance of data, the utility of data depends on the purpose. For which purpose we are collecting the data. So all these things are very important while you are creating the metadata. So why do I need metadata? What is the importance of metadata for a researcher? So metadata is created and collected because it enables and improves use of that data. Because if somebody has collected the data, we want to analyze the data, and then we can find out what are the gaps in the data, what are the new requirements of the data, so we can improve our data by collecting the fresh data and comparing the existing data. Then good data, metadata, can make up for human fallibility. Fallibilities means the human errors. Normally we tend to forget the things, we tend to commit mistakes. If we have preserved the metadata, if we have maintained the metadata properly, then the human errors can be removed, and we can get the better results, proper results. People forget and misplace the things and leave research projects taking their knowledge of the research methodology and data with them. Suppose some researcher has conducted any research in some field, he may take the data with him, and other users of the coming times may not be able to verify the old data with the new one. So that is why if we have preserved the metadata, then that will help the future researchers to update their knowledge, to compare their data, and they can improve their methodology using the existing data. Now, metadata ensures that we will be able to find data, use data, and preserve it, and reuse the data in future. So let us see one by one what do we mean by all these concepts. Now, finding data means metadata makes it much easier to find relevant data, because when we were preserving different type of data, the researcher will be conducting research on a specific topic in a specific area. So he would like to find a relevant information, relevant data to his requirement, to his research area. So if we have preserved metadata properly, we have maintained the proper metadata in a proper format, then it will be very convenient for the researcher to find the relevant data out of the huge data that we have preserved, we have collected. Then most searchers are done using text. Mostly we use Google search, and different type of searches are made. But we have the literature in audio form, image form, and video form. So it is very difficult to find this type of material, multimedia format of material, without, in the absence of the textual metadata. If that is not there, then we may not be able to find specific type of images or videos or audios. When we search on Google, you might have searched, if you want to search specific type of images or audio files or video file, then you specify the format of the file, or you may specify the different type of file, and then you get that specific type of file, relevant files. That is because we have already entered the textual metadata. In absence of textual metadata, we will not be able to search the multimedia type of metadata. That is why metadata is important. Metadata also makes text documents easier to find, because it explains exactly what the document is about. Even textual data documents also, we must add the metadata. Only then we can find the exact information, relevant information, pinpointed information, exhaustive information expeditiously. In the absence of metadata, we will not be able to provide services, of a researcher will not be able to find pinpointed exhaustive information expeditiously. So that is the importance. That is why we need to metadata. Then using metadata. To use the data set, researchers need to understand how the data is structured, definitions of terms used, and how it was collected, and how it should be read. So the user should also understand the structure of the metadata, the definition of the terms that are being that are entered in the metadata. Only then he will be able to use the data or read the information from the metadata from the storage system. Then reusing data, that is one of the most important factor, that we store the metadata for reusing it. Researchers often want to reuse data collected for another project for their own project. When you are undertaking a research, then you undertake the review of literature. That means you go through the existing literature, and if you want some existing data, then you want to use it for your project, to improve your project, to improve your services. So that is for that purpose, we must preserve the metadata. That is, then it will be very handy, very helpful for the future researchers. The data still needs to be found and used, but often at a higher level of trust and understanding. We must, the data should be very trustworthy and understandable. Only then it will be reusable. If you don't have the trusted data, then it will be of no use, and that will waste a lot of time, energy, and money of the researcher. Then reusing data often requires careful preservation and documentation of the metadata. Reusing means we must carefully preserve the data. Documentation is very important of the metadata. Documentation means the detailed description of the metadata, the area of covered by the metadata. So all that is very important for reusing the data. Now there are different causes which tend us to preserve the metadata. There can be different causes. I have listed some of them. That is not an exhaustive list. I'll show you in brief. There are some main reasons why we should preserve the data. There can be hardware failure may result in losing our data. Some hardware crashes sometimes. There are different reasons that hardware fails, or hard disk crashes, or some sparks in our systems. So there can be different reasons. So for that purpose, we should have a backup of our metadata. We should preserve our metadata, so that if some hardware crashes, then we should not lose our data. Then viruses and malware, that is a very major issue these days. People tend to leave different viruses. There are very harmful viruses which can crash your hard disk, or which can crash your system. And some viruses are really dangerous for your data. So if we have not preserved our data properly on a safe platform, then we may lose all our data. Then there are data breach happens very frequently. We every day we hear news about this hackers and all others are stealing the data. We have heard about the Facebook. We have heard about this WhatsApp and all other, Twitter and all. So that is another issue, very important, which tend us to preserve our data, save our data. Then human errors are again one of the, I think human error is the second major reason that we lose our data. Say many times we blame computer. The computer has committed some mistake. Huge errors have been committed. Actually, computers don't commit mistakes. The human being commit the mistakes. Human errors are very important, very major reason that we may lose our data. So that is another reason that we should preserve our metadata. Then natural disasters, though they are not very prominent reason for losing our data, but still natural hazards, disasters can also cause us to lose our metadata. So for that purpose, we should preserve our metadata. So these are the major reasons we can identify for due to which we may lose our data. And if we look at the perspective, the contribution of different reasons, then this diagram can briefly tell that major reason of losing our data is the hardware failure. Second major reason is human errors, and then rest of these figures may vary from different, a little bit vary from different studies, but major study is that these are major contributor, data loser contributor is hardware, and second level is the human errors. This picture again supports the same reasons, but a little bit variation is there. And because there are so much reasons, so many reasons that we can lose the data. So there is a lot of scope. There is a lot of say what should we say, reasons that we must preserve our data. We should control the things, because there are so many things which are not in our hand. We can't control those things. The data is why we should maintain data and manage the data, because it is a valuable asset. It needs database creation is really expensive. It is time consuming. It is really laborsome. It needs a lot of labor to create a data. So that is why we should preserve the data, so that we should not recreate the whole data. We should not spend so much money and time and labor in recreating the whole data, and we may not be able to say create some of the data that earlier we had, because we may not have the original source from where we had created the data. So that is why we should preserve the metadata. Maximize the effective use and value of data and information assets. We should maximize the use of metadata. That is why we should manage our data. Then continually improve the quality, including data. We should improve the quality of our data. Continuously, we should create the say. We should check our data about the accuracy, whether how far the data is accurate. If there are some errors, some deficiencies there, we should improve that. Then integrity of data, integration of data, interlinking of the data, timeliness of data capturing. We should capture the data well in time. If time is lapsed, then we may not get the relevant data or important data. We may lose some of the opportunity to capture some data. And preservation, relevance, and usefulness. We should take care of all these issues. Then ensure appropriate use of data and information. We should control how the data will be used, how appropriately data and information can be used. We should try to avoid inappropriation and appropriate use of the data. We should control, we should follow certain standards, certain rules to allow its use by the researchers. Then facilitate data sharing. Data sharing, we labs understand resource sharing, interlab loan, and so many terms are there. So that enriches our collection automatically when we start sharing our resources with different people, and their resources we can have for our readers, our users. So we should share as much as possible. Then ensure sustainability and accessibility in long term for reuse in sciences, in research. So we should ensure that the data can sustain longer time. It should be accessible in all formats. We will be seeing different reasons why we should say why accessibility is important. You know, different hardwares keep on changing, different say software keep on changing, and different file formats keep on changing. So we need to upgrade our data so that it remains accessible. Otherwise, if we don't update our say data according to new developments, technological developments, hardware developments, software developments, database management systems, then our data, how far it may be important, but that may not be accessible, because then the format may not match with the new formats. You might have, you all of us are aware that sometimes there was floppy, then there came the CD, not CD is also outdated, then came pen drive, even pen drive is outdated. So we keep on the physical formats of storing the data keeps on changing. So we must upgrade our data according to new developments, new amendments, changes, so that it remains sustainable and accessible. So how to manage the data yourself? You can keep yourself organized. You should be able to find your files, data input, analytical scripts, outputs at various stages of analytical process. You should keep on updating your files. You should see, we analyze the data at different stages. If we don't preserve the data at different stages, then we may tend to lose some of the files, and we may misplace some files, and then we may not be able to process our data properly. We may not be able to preserve our data properly. Then track your research processes for reproducibility. Our data should match with our output, so that we can input exact and transformation that we have produced them. So we should match our outputs with the exact inputs and transformations, so that the result should be appropriate. Better control version of data means easily identify versions that can be periodically eliminated. I have seen different researchers, they tend to keep on different amendments in different files, and sometimes they don't eliminate or they don't delete the earlier versions of their research, and accidentally they happen to submit their older files rather than the fresh files, new files, in which they have updated their information, they have updated their research. Evaluate some of the theses in which I have found that the researcher is giving excuses. So perhaps I have printed some earlier version of my file. So we should keep on eliminating the outdated versions, outdated files of our data. We should keep only updated versions of our file, so that accidentally we should not communicate the wrong information to our researchers. Now, what is the researcher perspective for managing the data? The quality control your data more efficiently. We should maintain the quality of our data, so that the result should be appropriate. To avoid data loss, we should regularly back up our data. We should back up at different places and different storage mediums, and we should preserve them at different locations, so that if we lose one of the backups, then we have the second or third backup. We should not lose our data. Normally, I have seen all of us are very, say, casual most of the time in taking the backups, but that sometimes leads to a huge loss. I have faced many times that type of situation, but we don't say rectify ourselves. We don't improve ourselves. We keep on laziness in taking the backups of our data. But that is harmful. Then format your data for reuse by yourself or others. Means I just told you, we should keep on updating our formats depending on the new developments and new requirements. You may do it yourself, or if you are not trained or if you are not aware of the technology, then you should seek help from others, so that it can be reused. Then be prepared for documents your data for your own recollection, accountability, and reuse. See, your data can be reused by yourself or by others. If it is online, then anybody can use your data. So we should be accountable to what we have collected. We are responsible for what we have collected. If we are giving wrong information, then we may face some legal issues or legal problems in future. So we should be, when I have collected the data, I am accountable for that data. So that is my responsibility, that I should give proper, accurate, exact, updated data. Then gain credibility and recognition for research efforts through data sharing. I see. In older time, theses were just kept in the libraries. When some researcher submits the thesis, that just lives in a corner in a library in some shelf. But nowadays, your thesis is online. You have to submit the soft copy of the thesis that will be uploaded in Shodh Ganga in India and other ETD databases throughout the globe. And when you are doing it, you are on the evaluation of throughout the world. Now, whole world is your examiner. Anybody can say check the credentials of your data. Now, we cannot hide anything. We cannot do any research in isolation. So whenever we are sharing, it gives authenticity to our work. It gives credibility to our work, because we are challenging, in a way we are challenging that yes, anybody can check my data. It is authentic. Anybody can reuse that data. So that is the reason why researchers should preserve or upload their data. Now, if we see most of the data, where that data is available or where that data is lying, that is lying in filing cabinets, that is lying on hard disks and at different places. Hard copies are lying in the libraries. But nowadays, many of the journals are subscription-based journals, online journals are available. So the picture changes now. Instead of just piling on the shelves of the library or in the hard disk, abundant hard disk, now most of the things are online. They are in a systematic manner. They are in an organized manner. They are easily accessible. They are easily understandable, and definitely they are reusable. So that is the reason we must make the our maximum efforts to properly arrange, organize our metadata. Now, well-balanced publicly accessible data is important. Why? What is the reason that data is important and accessible? Number one, increases the impact and visibility of the research. It increases the impact of a research. It increases the visibility of research. You see, if you look, search on Google, so let's say search my name, you find a long list of publications. There is a long contributions that I have made. So that makes your research more visible. I almost daily I receive one or mail or the other that somebody has read your research, somebody has consulted your research, somebody has cited your research, your paper. So that increases the impact of your work. That increases the visibility of your research. You get more and more citations. You see, all of us are aware of the importance of the citations. The more the citation that our research get, the more authenticity it proves. So when our data is available online, when it is available publicly, it is accessible publicly, then it definitely gives an impact on the people throughout the world, throughout the globe. It increases the accessibility, readability of your research. Then it promotes innovation and potential new data uses. It promotes innovation, means when people read your research, then they feel, yes, this is another area where I can work. That people can use your data. That gives more people, say, motivate more people to conduct research on that particular field. It leads to new collaborations between data users and creators. You see, it is very relevant when your data is available online. When people read your work online, then you get automatically different offers from different people. Uh, as just the party was telling, I am associated with different journals. It is not that I have a people. People approached me because then when they read some papers on online, when they go through the title of my paper, then they know that yes, this person is working on this area, and then they approach that I want your contribution. I want you to say contribute a paper on this area, or I want you to review this paper on this area. So that way, your importance, your collaboration increases. People approach you automatically. You don't need to approach people. People will come to you. that maximizes transparency and accountability. Mostly people tend to hide their work if that is not some authentic, if it is not an authoritative work. When you publicize your work, when you give your work public access, that means you have confidence in your work. That increases the transparency of your work, that anybody can challenge, anybody can read the paper. So that means I don't need to hide my paper, because I have worked hard. I have, whatever I have said, that is some on basis of certain theory, certain research, and it also increases my accountability. I am accountable to my country. I should not write something that can go against the reputation of the country, that can go against the reputation of my institution, that go against the reputation of anybody. We should be accountable to that also. So that is the reason we should make our data accessible, public. Enable scrutiny of research findings. It is, I have already discussed about that, that anybody can scrutinize, anybody can analyze, anybody can evaluate our finding, that they are authentic or not. That also, that is the freedom with the different readers. Your research readers can go through, they can comment on your findings. Then encourages improvements and validation of research methods. It also improves, it also helps different people in validating our research method, improve their research techniques. That also another reason we should publicize our research. Then reduces cost of duplicating data collection. You see, data collection is, all of us are aware that data collection is a very time consuming task. You have to visit different people, you have to spend so much time. Even if you, I know we can collect data online, but most of the time we will not get very good response in online data collection. So it needs a lot of time, money, and different efforts. And if our data is available online, then we may not need to spend again the whole efforts or time and money on the collecting the same data. We may use the data from our perspective, from a different perspective. That helps readers, the researchers, in reducing their time and cost. Then it provides important resources for education and training. The data available online can gives different additional information, they say different primary, secondary information to the researchers, and they can get training and education, use training and the available resources for training and education purposes also. Metadata is created at two different levels, at the project level and at the dataset levels. At the project level, we may get data, something like name of the project, dataset title, project description, dataset abstract. So all these type of you can say bibliograph type of things are available about the project. That is, these are the elements that are created at the time of project level. And at the dataset level, the data origin, when the data was originated, experimental type of data, experimental, observational, raw or derived, the physical collection models, this type of data origin is given. Then data type, the type of data that we have collected, that detail we have to give. Then data acquisition details means how the data was acquired, the different, sometimes in sciences particularly, the data is collected through different sensors, like meteorological department or some labs, they collect data from different sensors. So which equipments were used for collecting the data. Then experimental design, which design was followed to collect the data. The sensor calibration methods, how these sensors are calibrated for collecting the specific type of data, because some equipments have different calibration methods for collecting the data. Then file types, which type of files are used for preserving the data. There can be different styles. So that is also very important, so that the user can understand which software he will be able to use to read that data. Then data processing method, software, the which method was used to process the data and which software was used for analyzing or processing the data. Then data processing scripts and codes which were used, and data parameters list including variable names, description of each variable and units, etc. So all these type of details have to be entered at the dataset level. Now, to conclude this study, if a data are well organized, well documented, well preserved, and publicly accessible, verified as to accuracy and validity, the it will result in good quality, high quality data, easy to share and reuse, citation and credibility to the researcher. Researcher will get credibility if the data is properly accessible, as it is authentic. Then definitely anybody that who is using your data, he will give credit to you, he will cite you. Then definitely you will get some authenticity and credibility throughout the world. Then cost saving to the research, it will save a lot of cost in recollecting the data by the fresh researchers. And lastly, the data deluge has created a surge of information that needs to be well managed and made accessible. See, the data flow is so huge that it needs to be properly well managed. If it is not managed properly, then it will not be accessible. You see, some people say, like, we have a misconception about the internet, that internet saves time, but I think it wastes a lot of time of the readers, of the users, because most of the time we may not retrieve the pinpointed information, relevant information, exact information. We have to spend hours and hours to reach to a specific type of information, specific minute micro information. So that way it does not save time. If you search on Google and below the search window, if you look at the hits, then it is in crores. The basic reason is it is not arranged in a systematic manner. It is not, the metadata is not properly done. And say another reason is most of us are not trained in searching the data. So we should search properly, then we may get specific information expeditiously. The cost of not doing data management can be very high. If you don't manage the data properly, then it may result in higher expenditures in searching the specific information. That may be very high, that may lead to wasting a lot of money in getting the specific information. Be cognizant of best practices and tools associated with the data recycle to manage your data well. I have repeated many times, we must update ourselves in managing our data. We must update our data according to the new developments. We should be well aware of what are the new developments in managing or preserving our data, so that we should gradually shift from older version to the newer version. So we should be frequently updating ourselves about the different new tools coming, preserving the data. Then there are many benefits associated with the act of managing data, including the ability to find, access, understand, integrate, and reuse data. So all that was about using data. Thank you very much. I hope it might have a little bit of beneficial for you. Thank you, Tripathi ji, thank you.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. You have discussed the most important part of the whole research process, and that is describing the metadata, because the whole searching and reusing the data depends on completely the metadata we maintain in our repository or wherever we manage. So it has been really very enriching session, sir, in the process of managing research data. You have given a very good detail. I mean, very informative details for everyone. And I am sure that all the participants, they must have benefited themselves with the content you have shared. The session will continue, sir. I will be demonstrating little bit the
Sure,
recommendation,
sure.
means recommended
Right, right.
practices recommended practice in research data management, and I'll be demonstrating also the one tool, data management plan tool, so that it can be used for how we can create the data management plan. And then, with your
Thank
kind
you.
permission, we will conclude the session.
Please.
Okay, sir, may I continue
Thank you.
with your?
Please, please,
Okay,
please, please.
so
Okay.
I'll be in addition to sir's talk, I will be continuing the session uh, about the research data management. I think the first day I discussed about the research data management, and then we also discussed some other important points. So now we are going to talk about the recommended practices in library means research data management. And I'm sure that all the participants means speakers, whatever they have discussed, you might have benefited yourself, and they all have touched the different aspect of the research data management. And one aspect we also saw one tool, that was the Fixair, where we saw yesterday the different features of Fixair in order to manage our data. And today I'll be showing one more tool, that is one we have already seen by Dr. Neeraj. He demonstrated that day about the DMP online, and today I'll be showing about the DMP tool that after my means this session. I mean to say that this recommended practices in RDM. So far in the whole process, I guess you must have understood the concept about the research data management. That research data management has a set, you can say, the cycle, and the whole process goes one after another. As we have seen that it starts with the planning, then finding the data, then analyzing the data, arranging the data, then sharing the data, and then finally reusing the data. So that complete there is a cycle of research data management. And when we move to the next point, means from proposal planning writing, then we start the project setup, then we start data collection, and then we analyze the data, and finally when we analyze, then we start thinking about the data discovery or data archival, and then we share it, and finally when we are closing the cycle, we ensure that the data which we have saved, it is going to be reused. And in that way we talk about the reuse or excess of the data. So what are the different recommended practices we have to follow, or we are supposed to follow, that we are going to discuss in this in continuous presentation. Some basic component we are supposed to see that need to be included in the whole data management plan. And in that, the first one is that naming of the file, as sir has rightly pointed out during his talk when he was showing in his presentation. He very clearly mentioned that whatever metadata we are managing, whatever data we are managing, if we do not properly manage it, or if we do not name it properly, what will happen that there will be maximum probability for duplication, there will be maximum probability of missing the content, or if we do not properly name it, there will be maximum probability that we will not be in position to get the data whenever we are in need of that data. So everyone involved in data collection or analysis or reusing of data or storing the data in the practice of research data management, they must follow one standard practice. Also, they must understand how it has to be filed, and also how it has to be named properly. And the last important point, that what protocol we are going to follow for backing up our data. Because sir demonstrated in the PPT that if we do not have proper backup policy, or if there is a loss or data loss, so we may lose our important data which we have collected, and that cannot be reused, because if we lose, we cannot gain it. So we must have a backup policy so that it can be reused, reutilized, and we can go ahead with the rest of the practices in the data management. So when folders are used, they should follow an agreed standard, and each project, laboratory experiment, whatever. And researcher especially, they are supposed to adhere to some disciplinary standard and maintain consistency in file naming. Because if you remember the talk of sir, he was telling that if we do not follow, suppose we have collected the data and after some time again, there is an addition, there is some new information, or we have revised the information. So there will be a maximum probability that we may miss information, or if we do not properly name it, there may be trouble in managing those data. So how we can follow the standard? A small example is given in the table, like naming standard. We should also means we should ensure that some numbering standard, specification of digit number to ensure a consecutive listing of the files. Then date standard, we should follow it. It should not be like today I am giving that 5/6/2021. Tomorrow or after 1 month, you change it to YYMMDD or YYDDMM. So the whatever the date standard we have to follow, it should be in your data management plan in the beginning itself, so that it does not create problem. Or you can say, if we change the standard of the date, managing the date, it may create problem in relocating your information or understanding sometime. Punctuation standard, you can see that there is an example given like project underscore, then number 101 underscore sample underscore 001 dot xlsx. So this is the Excel file which you have given nomenclature, you have properly named it, and so that next file, when it is added to your collection or added to the data repository, so it has one nomenclature and you can easily identify, you can easily locate it. It will not create any problem while searching the record also. Vocabulary standard, you also should maintain disciplinary standard in vocabulary language, and especially abbreviation. For example, project underscore one and then underscore sample PCR. So you have to ensure that it does not change. You are maintaining some vocabulary standard. File version numbering, label the file version in numbering, whether it is 1.0, 1.1, 1.2. Why versioning or file version numbering is important? Because we keep changing or we keep adding the information whenever we are collecting the data, or whenever we are in process of managing our data research activities. So there will be maximum probability that you can add information to your collected data, or there may also be a probability that you have to exclude some data. So if you do not maintain the version, what will happen if you exclude or include any particular information to your data? It may misguide you. Or sometimes, suppose you have some gap between you can say the first data which you collected and when you updated the file next time. Suppose there is a gap of time, so what will happen? You may forget after some time that what information I added to my file and what information I excluded from file. So versioning of the file will help you if you properly maintain that first file I created on this date and the version of that file is this. After 1 month, if you change anything to file, you just give version to that file, so you can easily identify, yes, after first file I updated my second file on this particular date. So it will help you to understand the modification you have made to your file. Moving to the next one, that is version control. Version control, basically it can be easily managed, and it can also be achieved through research data access and editing privilege control, or selecting one individual to handle all manual editing of data, or use of software also helps you to maintain the version. Many software you might have seen, especially when we see any bibliographic descriptive metadata software, where we have means the software has provision to add bibliographic metadata information. So it automatically gives you some numbering pattern or something. So sometimes the software also are very helpful to manage your record or help you in versioning the record. Metadata helps, as sir has already discussed about the metadata portion in very descriptive way. So I will not go in detail, but metadata is data that gives all information about your file, whether it is computer file in any format, whatever it is available in your repository, or whatever the file you have created for your repository. So it has means metadata is the main part which describes the whole detail about your file. It is the documentation that accompanies the research data which makes it discoverable and usable over time. As I beginning of the session, sir also mentioned that metadata plays a very important role in locating the file or locating the information, or when the other researcher they are in search of the data, so they will it will metadata will help them to get the particular information even after submission of the data to repository. So it basically facilitates discoverability of data, data identification, data association with publication and related data set, quality assurance and validation of data. So if you look into this metadata standard, there are many standard discipline wise. If you go for humanities data, so the text encoding initiative or Dublin Core DCMI, Dublin Core Metadata Initiative, the Visual Resources Association Core, or the functional requirement for bibliographic records, we also call it as FRBR, especially when we do cataloging. So FRBR, RDA, all these come in the picture. Geospatial data, especially related to geographical, the content standard for digital geospatial metadata, CSDGM, ISO standard for geographic information, ISO 19115:2003, Angelic. So this is related to geospatial data. Social science data, data documentation initiative, DDI, you must have heard about this. Scientific data, CCLRC, scientific data model, and multimedia, NISO Z39.87-2002, technical metadata for digital still images, MPEG 7. So these are all metadata standards which have some international standard to make the information discoverable, make the metadata, your data discoverable. So if we follow that metadata practice standard, so definitely it is going to be very useful in order to follow the recommended practice. Now, what format? If you remember Dr. Nikesh Naran, when he discussed, he mentioned about the data format in his practice. So when selecting the format, we have to consider some of the point like data collection, analysis and sharing, discipline related standard, what software and hardware compatibility, how it is going to be means in future, how it has the longevity during the data retention period. So all these things we need to consider, and some of the points are the format. There is a proper format. I took it from his slide only. Some preferred file format we all follow when we generate the computer file, like containers, tar file, JZip, zip mode. These are all compressed file. If you look for the databases, so CSV or extensive markup language, geospatial, SHP, DBF, GeoTIFF, NetCDF, especially for movies, we all use MPEG or AVI, MOV, MXF. If there is a sound file, MP3, MXF, AIFF, WAV file, statistical, ASCII, ASCII, DTA, POR, SAS, SAV. So likewise, if you see, if you go for the image, there is a TIFF, TIFF, JPEG, PDF, PNG, GIF, BMP. For tabular data, we use CSV file. For text, we always use HTML, ASCII, UTF-8, PDF, XML. So likewise, we some preferred file formats when we are in process of recommended practice in research data management. So these are recommended format we all have to think about. Then citation basically one very important part of the whole research practice, because when we do the research related activity, so we come across many literature which already created by someone, or you can say for that someone else is responsible. So it is very important for the creator to get credit. Suppose I have done some research a few years back and someone is going to reuse it, so he or she cannot get credit unless or until the particular author is properly cited, the information is properly cited. So the benefit of data citation, it will enable the sharing and reuse of data, which in turn has been shown to increase the author citation. In this way, the author also get his credit, you can say recognition of his work, because he has done a lot of research, he has done contributed on that particular idea to the society or profession. So the citation plays a very important role. It also makes data legitimately citable, acknowledges data ownership, allows for the use of data citation matrix. So there are many side advantages. I think Dr. Nikesh has already discussed about data citation. Data sharing. Data sharing is in the whole research data management practice. The data sharing is most important part, because once we finish our research data management, if it is not going to be used by another research unless or until it is restricted, it has the restricted access, your whole effort for maintaining research data is going to be, you can say, it is not going to be useful for the rest of the researcher. So data sharing is very important part in the whole practice of research data management, because whatever information we are storing today, it has to be reused by some other researcher, and that is the ultimate one of the motive of the whole practice. So why we have to share data? Because it will encourage the scientific inquiry and debate, because people, when they start search, they first will look for the data gap, research gap, and based on the previous research they will get an opportunity to inquire, means have debate, and they will get an opportunity to find some new output. It will promote innovation and potential new data uses. Obviously, when the researcher, they get some research gap based on the previous research, they find more, you can say, opportunity to find new innovation, leads to new collaboration between data users and data creators, maximizes transparency and accountability, enables scrutiny of research finding, encourage the improvement and validation of research method, reduce the cost of duplicating. This is important part. See, most of the institute, they have some limitation, and if especially in developing country, if you see, so the maximum institute, they have problem of the funding, maximum institute have the problem of the cost involved in research data management practice. So if we follow some standard practice, or if we increase the data sharing, or we have the provision of data sharing, so it is going to be useful for another researcher, and it will reduce the cost for duplication of the data collection, and it will increase the impact and visibility of research. It is very important in the whole cycle of the practice of research data management. It will also promote the research that created the data, and its outcome can provide a direct credit to the researcher as a research output in its own right. As I already mentioned when I was talking about the data citation, see, any author or any creator, when he or she creates the data, he or she does not know that what is going to happen in the future, but he or she is giving the data to repository to be saved. And suppose, imagine after 5 years, some other researcher, they are going to use the same data, so they get an opportunity to get the credit of that work which they have done 5 years back. So in that way, the data sharing will provide a direct credit to the researcher who has already done the research on that particular area. It will also help to provide important resources for education and training. If I am using the data which is already collected, so I can mention those information for education purpose and especially for the training. I can train people based on the old data and I can easily compare the situation in the present era. So all these are a very, very important point. And if I go for this research data management in India, you all can go and browse. I have given the DOI information at the bottom. There is a research in this regard, how many research data management practices have taken place in India. So if you look into the data archival, only few institutes they have archival out of these institutes listed on the screen. And almost all the institutes except one, that is the National Institute of Oceanography, Goa, all these institutes, as per the study of by this particular researcher, they do not have the policy or they are in the development or planning stage. So in India, especially when we talk about the research data management practice, we do not have concrete policy so far for managing our research data. We discussed many times in the previous 4 days, but we will learn and we will see that how we can manage our create data management plan so that it is going to be helpful. So after this, I will stop my PPT here because the rest of the things we have already discussed. I am going to demonstrate that how we can create the data management plan. Data management plan, Dr. Neil has already described in a very detailed way using the DMP online tool. And now I am going to show you that how DMP tool can help you to create the data management plan. And okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so I will share my screen first. Yeah, I guess my screen is visible to you all. This is the, you can also go and browse the dmptool.org. This is a tool online, and this particular tool will enable you to know about the different process involved in creating data management plan that meet institutional and funder requirement. See, when we start creating the data management plan, before that, I would like to show you some information available on this website. See, when you go to DMP tool website, so you will find here there are some DMP tool by the numbers. Like if you look for the users, there are 60,689 users who are available in this DMP tool. There are 58,409 plans available in this DMP tool, and also there are 300 participating institutes. So it has a very big number to understand that how the data management plan can be created. So before I go for the creation, I will show you some good plans which already have been created by some of the institutes. So if you go to this particular link, this one plan, here there are 58,409 plans already, data management plan, and you can see it is written public data management plans. So you can see all these plans are listed, institute and template, who is the owner, or if there is any data management plan ID, all these information are given, and at the last column there is a link to download also. So I am going to search a data management plan for library. So I type library here and I go for search, and here if you see I find two data management plan, and if I go for choosing the one, I just simply open this And I see that this data management plan is available now. If you look for the overview, so here you can see this plan is available in the PDF format. Okay, let me share my whole screen. Just a minute. I'll share the whole screen, then it will be visible, all this. If I move to the next, yeah. I was just showing that this is the plan which I downloaded from the this particular site, DMP tool site, and this is the PDF. It is created by Lauren Howell, and the affiliation non-partner institution. Funder is National Endowment for the Humanities, and this is the Office of Digital Humanities. Last it was modified on 12th of February 2016. And you see, if you go to this particular data management plan, the plan name is Emily Strange Collection at the Oxford Public Library. So it includes role and responsibilities, expected data, what kind of data it is going to have, period of data retention, how long it is going to be retained, archival of data and data format and how it is going to be disseminated, data storage and preservation of access, how it is going to be preserved and how it is going to be accessed. So if you look into this, if I maximize this, you can see the content clearly. If you look at the plan, you get so many information that how data is going to be stored, how data is going to be preserved to ensure the access, and what is the backup plan. All these detail is given in this particular data management plan. Yes. So why I am showing this, that you also can create such type of similar to this, you can also create the data management plan, and this data management plan will help you to understand the means how you can create the data management plan. So let us go back to the site, data management plan site, and now I'm going to start from the beginning, that how you can create the data management plan. I'll just show you one example that how you can create the data management plan. So this is the website, and here we will create the data management plan. So all of you can go directly to the browser and type dmptool.org, and here you can go to a sign in option. See, when I go to sign in option, there are three options available. First option is that if my institute is affiliated with DMP tool, so I have to choose the first option. Second option, if my institute is not affiliated with DMP tool, so I can log in with email address. And the third option, if not affiliated and you want to create account. So I will go with the last option, that is create an account. And here I am supposed to fill all the detail. Okay. So I'll give the detail here. Just a minute. Yeah. So here I'm just going to add the information. First I'll enter, for example, librarian guide, and I will add the Gmail address or whatever email ID I have. And you see, it is given that if your organization name is not listed, so what you can do, you can directly enter the organization name. So suppose I give librarian guide, directly I give the name of librarian guide, and I have to give here the password. And once I give the password, I will select the accept terms and condition, and then I'll ensure that I am not a robot through this captcha and click on create account. So once I do click on create account, it will create my login and it will directly take me to the dashboard. In dashboard, you can see, you can observe that it has the option of my dashboard. You are now ready to create your first data management plan and click the create plan button below to begin. So what I'm going to do, I'll just click on create plan here. And when I click on create plan, it will open the format where I'm supposed to provide the basic information. And very similar, you might have seen when Dr. Neeraj was explaining that how you can create the plan using DMP online. There is another tool, DMP online. So it is very similar, but there are few differences. So I'm going to give my project name. So suppose I have given librarian guide, what research project you are planning. So I have given this. And since it is not my permanent plan, I'm just creating this as a mock project for testing. So I can enable this or check this option, mock project for testing. So when I check this, it will allow me and or this particular plan will be treated as a mock project for testing or practice or educational purpose. Second point where I am supposed to give the information, that is select the primary research organization, and here I am supposed to give the organization name. So this I already gave in the beginning, so it has taken as a means the organization name which I gave at the time of the login. And here also I select no research organization associated with this plan. If I select this, you can observe that this particular text box get disabled. It means it is not going to associate my project with any organization. But in my case, I have my organization which I will type here. Suppose librarian guide. You can see it is listed here. So I choose this. Third information, that is select the primary funding organization. Who is going to fund your this particular project? So okay, let me choose no funder associated with this plan or my funder is not listed. So you can choose the checkbox accordingly. And after that, you click on create plan. Once I click on create plan, what will happen? It will create the next you can say it will show you the next option for adding the information. So here I am supposed to give the project detail, and I will be giving the for example project abstract here. I will give it detail. Then when my project is going to start, suppose I start on 5th and I expect that it is going to be over by 31st of July. So project in date and project start date I mentioned. And if my research output may have some ethical issue, so I'm supposed to check this option. And also, what are the ethical concerns are related to my project or may relate to my project, I have to describe here. So suppose I uncheck this, so it will not ask. And if you want, if there is any funder available for this or associated, so you can give the funder name here, and finally you click on save. So once you click on save, it will save your project detail. Now we have to move to the second of tab, that is collaborator. Here you can add the collaborator. By default, it will show the email ID of the same which you entered at the time of login, or you can say account creation, and it will also show you the permission that in what capacity this email ID will work. So it shows here it is going to work as a owner. But you see, if you feel that there are 2-3 collaborators involved in this project, so you can also add the email ID, and here you can assign the permission to this email ID to work as editor or co-owner or read only. So let me choose co-owner and then I submit it. Once I submit it, what it will do, it will list below my owner name, and also it will allow you with the 3 options. which this email ID can move, co-owner or editor or read only. Now, once I complete the collaborator detail, the actual work starts from the third tab, where I am supposed to give all the plans, means what will be the data collection policy, how the documentation and metadata is going to take place, what will be the ethical and legal compliance, what will be the storage and backup policy, what will be the selection and preservation method, how I am going to share the data, and responsibilities and resources. So you see, in each option there are some questions, like you can see 0-/2. It means there are two questions, but no one, not even a single, or it is blank. No question is filled as of now. And in the second option, there is one question, then two questions. So let us go and see the first one, the data collection, how I am going to collect the data. And if you look at the right side, so there is a guideline. You can choose these questions you can consider for this particular question. What data will you collect or create? So you can consider these questions to collect your data. So suppose I simply copy this and I enter the same information to this question. Do not consider as a plan, simply to add the content to this particular question, so that it will show in my, when I download my the whole this one data management plan in PDF file, these will show that where what information has been added. So I just click on save, so it will get saved. Now suppose you want to give any comment to this particular question, so you can add comment to share with collaborator, because there is already one collaborator assigned with this particular plan. So you can leave this comment for the collaborator so that they can understand. Next, if I move to the second one, how will the data be collected or created? First one, what data will you collect or create? The second option, how will the data be created? So you can add the information. You have to just plan that how data is going to be collected, and then you save it. So in the first option, data collection, we have saved information for two questions. Now I'm moving to the second one, that data documentation and metadata. So in documentation and metadata, I'm supposed to add the information that how metadata and how documentation is going to take place. So here also you can say it is very similar to the previous one. I simply copy the information and I'll ensure that these questions I consider for adding the policy for documentation, how metadata is going to accompany the data. All these detail will be part of this question, and I save it here. So once I save it, I have completed the second portion about documentation and metadata. The third portion, ethics and legal compliance. So this particular question have two. This portion has two questions. How will you manage any ethical issue? So again, I simply add the information here. You considering that these will be my information for this question, and I save it. Move to the next question and I add the information. These will be the question for consideration for the question that how will you manage copyright and intellectual property right for this particular question. So this will be my answer. Once again, I tell here that the information which I am adding, it is simply for your understanding. I'm not adding any actual policy for the questions available in the data management plan tool. So I just added the information here for this question, how will the data be stored and backup. So here you have to describe in detail that how you are going to store your data, what will be the data backup policy. All these information if you give here, so this will meet all your purpose of research data management, especially for storage and backup policy. The second question, how will you manage access and security? This you have to describe very carefully and following the international standard or some standard, so that you do not have any problem in managing the access and security of the data in your data repository or wherever you are going to store data. So far you see we have finished most of the option, only 3 are left. Now going to add the information for which data are of long-term value and should be retained. So here you have to give information that which type of data will be retained for long-term, which type of data will be retained for short-term, or what will be your data retention policy, what will be your selection and preservation. So all these information you have to give here. What is the long-term preservation plan for the data set, especially when you are managing data in your data repository as data set. So you have to ensure that what type of data, what is the long-term preservation plan for your data set which you are going to keep in your repository. Data sharing, how you are going to share the data, what will potential user, what type of potential user will find out about your data, how they will find, with whom will you share data via repository, all these detail you have to fill here, that what will be your sharing policy of the content. Then are any restriction on data sharing required, you need to add the information here, and accordingly once you add the information you just save it. And last one, that responsibility and resources. So here you have to give the who will be responsible for data management. So you have to give very carefully, because we already discussed that in responsibility of the research data management there are four elements. The first one is the researcher, second is the institute, then third is the data center, and fourth one is the funder. All these four components, they are responsible for managing the whole data. So you have to mention here that who will be the responsible for data management, and once you do, you just save it. So finally, once you save the information, now you are ready to move to the next portion of the data management tool, and that is the research output. Here you have to define that what will be the research output, or you can say anticipated research output, expected date you can mention here. And for that you need to click on here what type of research output you are going to give. Suppose audio visual collection, data paper, data set you are going to make. What will be the title, you can mention here, suppose research data for library rare collection. For example, I have given and I have described it properly in the description below as a expected output. And also I can mention that it may contain some sensitive data. It may contain personally identifiable information, and also you can intended repository you can make, anticipated release date, when you are going to release it you can give the information. Access level you can define, it is embargoed or restricted or closed. So here you can give the initial access level and initial license. You see Dr. Neeraj and Dr. Pandey, both they mentioned about the different licenses involved in different content which we add. For guidance on selecting a license, you can go to creativecommons.org and you can find more detail. And then what will be the anticipated file size, you can mention here. For example, I give 10 MB, and then finally I click on save button. Once I click on save button, so my data management plan, you can see it will be ready for download. I can see that title of my data management plan is the research data. This is research output. It is added here. And now let us go and download the data management plan which we just created. So you can download the data management plan in CSV format, HTML format, PDF, text, or even Word file or JSON file. So let me download it into PDF format, and then I can choose the font style. Most of us, we use Times New Roman. We use most of the time 12 size font, and how much margin you are going to leave, top, bottom, left, right. And finally, you click on download button. So it will generate the whole plan which you created with the help of DMP tool, and it will give you in the PDF format which you can see before using it. Okay, so it is still generating, and once it generates, you see here my whole data management plan is here. So librarian guide, data collection, the question is how will the data be collected, then documentation and metadata, how I'm going to document, how I'm going to manage my metadata, how I'm going to store, and how I'm going to take the backup of my data, selection and preservation, and all this part means how I'm going to preserve the data, how I'm going to share the data, with whom I'm going to share. All this what we mentioned in data management plan, it will add, and you can see some plant research output which we added. So research, this one, it will give you the information here, and finally your data management plan is ready. So what I was trying to show you that this is the method through which you can create the plan, and finally you can download it and you can see, or you can even publish it for the public use. So in this way you can create the data management plan. I have downloaded some of the good data management plan. I will also show you. This is the data management, means one research data plan for guideline on fair data management in Horizon 2020 H 2020 program by European Commission Director General of Research and Innovation. So initially it was introduced in 2016, but it has some changes in the policy. So they mentioned it, and you see the extension of the open research data pilot in Horizon 2020. So they have included all the policy. Likewise, there are many research data management policy of the different institute. If you go to DMP tool website, you can find the different management plan. So it is very clearly defined, very clearly mentioned that how they are going to use, what will be the cost management, how it is going to be preserved, what policy, protocol, everything is given, what type of data, and how the metadata is going to be used, how it is going to be interoperable, how it is going to allocate the resource, what will be the data security, what are the different ethical issues. All these will are discussed in this one. So I just stop sharing my this tab, and let me come back to the point. So far, I demonstrated that how you are going to create data management plan with the help of DMP tool. So in this way, these are the tools. You can also go with the DMP online tool and you can create the data management plan. So thank you. Hope my session, what I covered, will give you a lot of information to know about the data management plan and how to create the plan. And then sir already explained that what are the different metadata features and how the metadata part is important in the whole process of the research process. So I guess we have given you information about how you can create the metadata data management plan. So I am thankful to all of you for being the part of this session. And if you have any query or questions, so with kind permission of sir, shall we open the session for question and answer, sir,
Please,
if you allow?
please, sure, sure, sure.
Sir, first question, let me start with, may I request the participant to please mention your question in the chat box, which I will display on the screen, and we will answer as much as possible. Yeah, the first question, sir, I am getting from, what data are sensitive data? Please give some example. Sir, would you like to answer this question?
आप क्वेश्चन आप ही लीजिए, टेक्निकली जरा अपडेट नहीं है.
Okay. See,
You take up the
any
question.
sensitive data means it is not like the information which is objectionable. Any institute or any organization, especially the defense organization, or there are some organizations which deal with very sensitive information. And suppose if any research work is going on or in any scientific laboratory, if there is any research going on which scientist does not want to disclose it, so such type of information we are not supposed to share it publicly, and it should be retained in the restricted access. It should not be made available for public use openly unless or until suppose I share it and it is going to be misused by someone else. So it will create problem for the researcher, it will create problem for the institute, and also it may invite trouble for everyone. So we have to ensure that such data which has some sensitive issue or may have some sensitive issue, so it should not be uh, part of your sharing. It should not be in open access. It should be dealt with in
Yes,
restricted.
I also touched upon that about the authenticity and your responsibility towards country, towards the society. We should not share some data which can create harm in any form, which can harm feelings of others or which can be misused by the researchers.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Next question is from Raghavendra Jia. Please enlighten us about which is safest mode of data storage for long term. See, for managing the data in safest mode, you have to plan it. See, planning involves lot of discussion, and safest mode is that you are going to frame some security policy. It is related to your hardware, it is related to your software, it is related to your network security, it is related to your policy for sharing the data. All these are going to be part of your data storage policy. How you are going to store it? Storage does not mean that you simply dump it in a server. Storage has lot of other component, like how it is going to be retained, how long you are going to retain it, how if there is something goes wrong with your data, then how you are going to restore it, how you are going to restore it, what will be your backup policy. So when we talk about the data storage, the same time we are also thinking that how we are going to restore it. So you need to follow some standard that we have to follow. And as far as the safest mode you are talking, safest mode is that you have the backup plan. The first one I would like to mention that
Backup is the most
yes,
important.
if you are not having the backup plan, no plan is going to be counted as a safest, because hardware or software, there may be possibility, or it is all made by human, so there may be possibility of getting virus, there may be possibility of overheat, there may be probability of many issues which may harm your data. Sometimes we go with proper management everything, but all of a sudden our computer crashes, all of a sudden something goes wrong with hard disk. So all these can be the part of your storage device. So always you should ensure that you have a proper backup policy. Suppose something goes wrong, so you can take the backup, you can restore it.
May I add one point more?
Yes, sir.
Data migration according to the new developments, hardware, software developments, programming language development, that is also important part. Otherwise, whatever important data it may be, it will not be used after some time if the technology changes. So that is also security issue of the metadata use. It can be used only if we are updating our data according to the new developments.
Yes, sir. Another question is, sir, from Bharat Setia. What is the difference between RDMS and DBMS? I guess you are talking about research data management system and database management system. See, both are different.
Relational database management system.
Yeah, relational database management system and database management system. See, relational data, when we talk about it, in means you are talking about a relation between two table, or the database which allows you to just float within the particular database from one table to another table. And a best example I will give you, like software data management, this one, automation software. Automation software has different housekeeping operation. It deals with different housekeeping operation like acquisition. It deals with the cataloging. It deals with the circulation. It deals with the serial control. And suppose you are dealing with cataloging, you are dealing with circulation and acquisition, in which you have you purchased the book, you have added the information in acquisition, and when you issue the book, so circulation module fetches the detail about the book from acquisition and also fetches the detail from the uh, cataloging. It also fetches the detail, the patron from the circulation. So all these tables are interrelated, so that allows you to float within your database, and that is called relational database management system. I guess database management, RDBMS is the advanced version of database management system.
DBMS, yes.
Yeah, database. Earlier, this
Hmm.
was not in the provision. Later, the database developer team, they made the provision in the software where it was possible to float within table from one table or one field to another table's field. So it was means people started. It was given name as a relational database management system, where there was a provision to
It is
establish
more
relational.
robust, more facilities,
Yes,
more robust than DBMS. It is advancement of
yes,
DBMS. Yes.
yes, yes, yes. So, sir, I think it is 8:43, and we have continued the session for 1 hour 43 minutes. So
Yes.
let me not trouble you, and there
No,
are
no
many more.
problem, no problem. If you can, you want to take a one or two question more, if you, it's like,
Yes, sir.
if you find some good question, then
Yeah,
just
yes. Mm, okay, sir. There are. I'm seeing from the top. Okay, sir. I will request the participants to please send the question because it has many questions. My network is poor. Please send feedback. What are the, yeah, sir? One question is from Mr. Sisir Mohanty. What are the standard protocol for data preservation and retention? Sir, here it will be difficult to show you. I will request you to send me mail. I'll send you the PDF file of the total the
wait.
policy for
It will need a long discussion
long discussion. So I'll
or
send
full
you the complete
presentation.
standard for maintaining the protocol for preservation and retention. And one more thing I would like to mention here, that when we make the plan, institution may, different institution or institute to institute, your plan may vary. So sometimes we have to depend, or we have to think about our storage or our infrastructure, and accordingly we have to make plan, keeping the standard in. So likewise, there are many things when you start developing the policy. Better it will be that I will suggest you all, you just go to the Oxford or Cambridge University or very good universities who have implemented. Some of the name I will list here, like University of Cambridge. You can go to Oxford University. You can go to University of Sheffield, UK. All these institutions, they have implemented RDM policy in their institute. So please go to their website and find the research data management policy and go through the policy. So most of the detail you will find there in the policy itself. So it will give you more insight rather means exploring self. Before that, you just consult these policies, so you'll get detail. Yes, sir. One question, sir. A researcher has. This question is from Miss Madhuri. researcher has shared data of his research and the second researcher using the same data for their context of it. See, any researcher, suppose you have shared the content in the open domain, and if it is being used by the second researcher, your data, so it is the responsibility of the second researcher to cite the previous research in his her data management plan or in his research proposal. If he or she is not doing, it means it will be the case of plagiarism.
That
It will be,
plagiarism, that will be considered under
yeah,
plagiarism.
it will be considered
Actually,
as
there
the
are
case of,
there are rules and regulations how far you can use it, how much data you can use it. You have to authenticate also. So it is a responsibility of the second researcher to authenticate, to say determine his limitations, how far he will be using the data. That is the main thing.
yes sir. And see, whenever we have the, we are citing any information, you just consider the article writing or research project. Whenever we write any research proposal, so we come across different proposal or different literature. So what we do, we give proper credit to the previous researcher, and this is our moral responsibility. If I am a researcher, if I have done some research and after some time, if some other researcher is doing new research, so it is the responsibility of another researcher to credit, give credit to the previous researcher. And if it is not done, it means that will be considered as the case of plagiarism. And it is completely of completely depend as a moral responsibility. It is my responsibility that if I am using the previous research, I have to quote it properly. I have to give credit to the previous researcher. Otherwise, I am stealing his work. If I am not properly
Uh,
citing, I am not giving credit. It means I am stealing his work without giving his credit, and later it may create problem.
Another thing
Yes,
is
sir.
we must go through the plagiarism rules by UGC. Now even self plagiarism, self citation is putting is also covered under plagiarism. So there are actually it is punishable crime these days. So we must go through the plagiarism rules given by UGC for quoting. There are standards given how far you can quote, how far you can do it. And plagiarism check has already made mandatory for all the researches. Even in these journals also, they don't accept the paper without checking the plagiarism. So that is a mandatory. So we should be very careful while using data of other people.
Yes, sir. So, sir, thank you. I think time is flying, and
Yes, yes, we should wind it up.
we should proceed towards the closing of the session. So
Yes, yes, please.
let me start with thanking all the speakers who have taken part. We started with day one, where we discussed about the different aspect of research data management, and then we second session was taken by Dr. Nikesh Narayana. He's from Jayad University, UAE. So he also discussed the different aspect of research data management practice. The third session was taken by Dr. Neeraj from Punjab University. He also had detailed discussion about the data management creation through DMP online, and also the different aspect of research data management practices. Fourth session was taken care by Dr. Sriram Pandey. He discussed about the fixed air, and followed by the today's session, where we demonstrated and discussed about the importance of metadata in managing research, followed by the DMP tool and other aspect. Yes, all the speakers, they deserve huge round of applause and also the appreciation for their efforts, for their time to come forward and uh, giving their valuable inputs to these 5 days workshop. Uh, they all have done a really commendable job. They have all given their experiences, what they experienced during the practice of research data management. And still, we have not covered everything because research data management is a huge topic. Still, there are many things to discuss. I assure all of you that in coming future, once again, we'll plan research data management practice. And this time, I will also ensure that some institutes who have implemented policy in their organization abroad, so some speakers we will arrange so that they can also give their input to have more idea about some other aspect of research data management. I'm also thankful to all the participants for being a wonderful audience. They have they have shown very, you can say, appreciable. You can say they have interacted in all the session. They have participated with full enthusiasm. So all the participants also deserve huge round of applause and appreciation. Thank you very much for being a wonderful audience. And I'm thankful to Professor Dinesh Gupta sir for accepting the invitation and being the part of today's session and enlightening all the participants on the management of research data, metadata, and how we can consider other things in the whole practice. So thank you very much, sir, for joining us
Thank you,
today.
Tripathi ji. Thank you so much for
So,
inviting me.
sir, thank you, and we all must appreciate the audiences, especially the I mean
Sure, definitely,
participants,
definitely. No
participants who
workshop
have.
is successful without participants.
Yes, because without their involvement, this workshop would not have gone to the
Yes,
conclusion.
yes.
So they have been wonderful audience, and we hope the future also we will conduct such workshop, and we also will ensure that some fruitful, you can say, output will be seen by our lovely participants. So, sir, with these words, I will
You
request you to give final remarks for the participants, and then we'll conclude the session. Final message to all the
actually,
participants.
final message is we need many more professional like Tripathi ji, because this type of selfless service to the profession, I don't find many professionals, not only in lab research, otherwise also. So I wish all the best to all the participants, specifically Tripathi ji, to keep on organizing such informative technical workshops, because there are very few people who are so much technically up to date as you are. So I have all my wishes. I'm always there with you for all all support that I can. All the best to all the participants and the party. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words. We will see that we have future collaboration under your guidance, and also we will see that
Definitely,
all the participants they get benefit from the different talks. So all the participants, we request to stay safe, stay protected, take care of your family, follow all the guidelines, and always be happy. Wish you all a
be
very
safe.
happy evening. Wish you all very happy evening ahead. And with these words, may I request all of you with folded hands for your wonderful cooperation, and we'll conclude the session. So thank you all, sir. Thank you very much,
All
all
the
the
best.
participants.
Be
Thank
safe.
you,
Be
sir.
at home. Thank you. Thank you so much.